Hi. Halloween fans have always wondered, could a third cut to Halloween 2 from 1981 be possible with adding back in the additional scenes? Also, having the violence be uncut? The answer is yes. By doing that, it would be a special extended cut of the film. As a video editor and film editor, I am able to show you how it can be done, using, of course, footage from the Universal theatrical cut, which is in widescreen, which I've seen hundreds of times, and also the additional scenes and extended footage from the Universal TV version from Scream Factory, plus an omitted scene from the AMC broadcast, which I have also seen hundreds and hundreds of times. As you watch, I will explain and show you where the additional scenes and extended footage come in. Here's the demonstration. The first scene that we deal with that adds an additional scene starts off with Laurie being in the hospital, and you have Bud and Jimmy bringing her in. And as you know already, they unwrap her and they get her ready for a tetanus shot, and they take blood from her.
Janet, get me some more coffee.
Get that out of here.
As the nurses examine her,
Oh, Lori.
of course, Dr. Mixter says hello, and he gives her, asks her about a tetanus shot.
A lot of blood.
But besides all that, where the violence, of course, here, or the footage is uncut in the theatrical footage, you can see him taking her blood. In the TV version, they don't show you that. They cut out the violence, as I've said before.
Get me some 3/0 nylon on it.
Cutting needle?
Yes.
Right away.
We're going to have to put her out.
No. No, don't put me...
Laurie is afraid to go to sleep, of course, because Michael has been chasing her through the night. And it still is a continuation of that same night. So,
Take it easy.
Laurie is put to sleep.
Try to relax, Laurie.
The additional scene comes right after this.
We'll have you stitched up in no time.
Take it easy, Laurie.
Okay.
Now, here's the TV additional scene. There it is.
Janet.
Mrs. Owls tells Janet to get Laurie's clothes off
You
and
too.
tells Bud and Jimmy to get out. That is where that scene comes in, right away. The next scene that is added to the film comes in right here. This footage that's additional scene is from the TV version, but it was taken out. It was only in the AMC broadcast. They did not release it in the Scream Factory DVD. As you can see, in it, Jill tells Bud, can you believe it? 2 people dead. And he says no. Jill leaves, and Bud says to Mr. Garrett, it's drugs? That's what's wrecking society. The third scene that is added in comes in here. As you can see, as the theatrical footage plays out for this, they are walking down the halls, Mrs. Alves and Janet, and Jimmy is walking. Now the scene comes in right here, where he bumps into Janet, and Jimmy asks her if Laurie will be okay.
She cracked a bone in her ankle.
Janet tells Jimmy she's going to have a cracked bone, plus a scar.
Dr. Mixter gave her a
But she's strong as a bullet, and she can keep her eyes open.
Made out of steel.
She's made out of steel. Now Jimmy goes to see Laurie. But right before he goes to see her, this additional TV scene is actually the next scene that comes.
I did the right thing.
And that's how it would go in order. And in this scene, Dr. Mixter explains he feels that everything went well with putting her to sleep and the results should just be fine. And he tells the nurses to keep checking her, and she should be coming around anytime soon.
Checking her. She should be coming around at any time now.
Did you hear? 3 people. Where's Janet?
In the lounge on a break.
We'll go get her. She forgot to...
Jill comes in and tells them 3 people dead after listening to the TV with Bud and Mr. Garrett. Now they leave Laurie alone to sleep, get some rest. Now, the next scene, which will be the fourth additional scene, Mr. Garrett is not paying attention to the monitor, and that's how Michael Myers gets past him because he was too busy reading a magazine. As you can see, Michael Myers passes the security and he gets in. Now here's the additional scene. This is where it comes exactly in. He buzzes Karen in, and Karen says hello to Mr. Garrett, and then Mr. Garrett simply tells her that the killings were because of drugs, teenage punks on drugs. And it simply goes just like that.
Look, why don't you just shut up?
Okay, the fifth scene.
What are you all revved up about?
Jimmy tells
Look,
Bud to shut up because Bud is a total jerk.
All right, so what do you want
And Bud gives Jimmy advice to never get involved with the patient, but being with nurses, that's a different story.
Nurses? That's
Leo
not a
Rossi
story.
was played
But
Bud,
patients, it's no good. It never works out.
and Jimmy
Where you going,
was
Hollywood?
played by Lance Guest.
I'm telling you,
Now,
listen.
here's the additional scene where it comes exactly right in. As soon as Bud is done saying, "I'll tell you, college boy, listen to old Bud," here's the additional scene. Michael's now in the hospital, and he's looking around the corner, and he sees Karen. Jimmy comes out while Karen is working and says, "I heard some news over the TV. I think Michael Myers is dead." He tells Karen he's going to go check it out. And also, in the additional scene, we also get to see Michael walk to the door, where he goes downstairs to the next floor of the hospital. So Michael goes in, and look, the whole shot of Jimmy is longer. You can see Karen looking at him there in the beginning, and then she turns away, and Jimmy walks right past the door, and the door shuts closed. And then it shows you Karen looking at Jimmy, then back to her papers and getting to work, and fully the door closes.
Or Mrs.
Okay, the very next scene that comes is this scene. It's the next TV additional scene.
They've left?
16. Mrs. Alves is
Number?
mad at Janet because she did not call Laurie's parents right away from the party. Now she can't get a hold of them.
You should have called them right
Janet says
Now I can't
and
find
responds, "I am sorry, Mrs. Alves."
right away.
I'm sorry, Mrs. House.
Jimmy comes walking down the hallway, and he tells Janet to cover for him. He'll be 5 minutes. But Mrs. Alves, of course, says, "I heard that. 2 minutes, that's it."
I heard that. 2 minutes. That's it.
Okay. The next additional scene comes right after
Again tonight.
Michael goes down to the next level of the hospital,
Just 15 minutes.
and Michael is there right there through the window in the nursery, and he's watching Karen talk to Mrs. Alves.
You're right. I'm sorry, Mrs. Alves.
Mrs. Alves explains to Karen she's a good nurse, but she has to be on time. Then Michael
You've got to learn to be on time.
walks out of the nursery as Mrs. Alves goes over the paperwork with Karen, and Michael just passed Mrs. Alves in the hallway. And now the next scene comes right after that, and this is the TV. This is the TV additional scene, but right now how it starts, it's extended. So this is a TV extended footage. In the scene where he tells Laurie it was Michael Myers that did it, it was longer. Jenny brings in a Coke, and he gives it to her because he told her he was going to bring her a Coke. So he brings the Coke to Laurie, opens it up for her. Laurie takes a sip, and the scene, which makes it longer, it starts off originally by her saying, of course, "I can't believe it, Jimmy. I just can't believe it." And Jimmy says, how's the arm? And Jimmy says, "They should have handled him more carefully." And then Laurie says, "Who?" And then it would just continue right into the theatrical footage. So this is how it opens up. And then if we were going to put it back in, it would just connect just like that. And there you see it, the theatrical footage of her saying Michael Myers.
was after you.
And then she says, "From the Myers house? That little kid who killed his sister? But he's in the hospital somewhere." And Jimmy explains that he escaped last night. So that's how to connect them directly together. So far, this is how the scenes come in.
How do you know?
right in.
It's all over the radio. Television, too. It's on right now.
Each scene is connected right after each widescreen shot or after a full screen shot. Whatever it is, it's the exact time that additional scene comes in.
Okay.
Now Mrs. Alves tells Jimmy to go and get out, and visiting hours are definitely over.
No, you won't. Visiting hours are definitely over.
Okay, the next additional scene. When Mr. Garrett goes to find out why the phones went out, Janet is calling him, and he's in the basement. And as soon as he opens up the door, a bunch of stuff falls out right here in the theatrical version in this footage. Then, here's where the additional scene will come in. Michael, he hears it, and so he goes downstairs to kill Mr. Garrett. As Mr. Garrett continues to look around, Michael walks down the stairs to stalk Mr. Garrett and kill him while he's looking around down there in the basement where the telephone box is. Michael walks, you can see his shadow. And then, of course, Mr. Garrett opens it up and there's nothing in there. And the scene ends, of course, where Michael kills Mr. Garrett by putting the hammer down. Michael comes around the corner first, and then he kills Mr. Garrett with a hammer, but as you see in the TV version, it stops.